out, okay?
Of course.
I think that if you are really good at picking out lookalikes, right? Like a doppelganger, that's a good skill. However, the better you are at that, the more likely you are to look racist, right? Like if I look at you right now and I'm like, Adam, you look exactly like Donald Glover, right? Terrible at picking out a doppelganger, also incredibly not racist.
I see what you did.
See, like I got a good buddy, right? Indian family.
Yeah.
He resembles Aziz Ansari a little bit.
Okay.
But if I say that, yes, more skillful at picking out doppelgangers, also more racist.
Gotcha.
Right? It's a double-edged sword.
sword.
That's just a skill. That's just a skill you gotta hide if you're good at that, right?
Yeah. That's not something you want to list on your resume, that's for sure. All right.
Anyways,
well,
that's stupid. Let's get rolling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could tell you were onto something good. I wish I had caught the start of that. That was gold.
Yeah.
But we are recording now,
Okay.
so.
Okay, sounds good. Well,
we're
good
looking
morning,
at it.
everybody.
Good morning.
Happy Friday. Here we are. Welcome to the Walk-Off. I'm Scott Belford, joined as always by the best co-host in the biz, Adam Mack. And we are on a bit of a hot streak when it comes to interviews, my guy.
I know, it's been a nightmare. This last 5
It's been
days
such
have
a...
been
Oh,
shit
my
show.
goodness. Honestly, everyone listening right now, like, we have been so busy all week. We haven't even been able to release any of them.
I
We
haven't
sat
had
down-
any time to edit anything because it's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
well, we got another one we got to do. So we got a backlog of probably 3 or 4 pretty awesome guests coming up. So
Pretty awesome guests. The joys of a lockout is that all these guys have nothing to do but sit down with the likes of you and I.
Absolutely.
But big bonus for the walk-off and those of us, or those of you out there listening to us weekly. So we do have Kyle Johnston. We interviewed him yesterday. He, of course, ended his season with AAA Buffalo. He is in the bullpen there. And he is a guy that, I don't know, I think it's probably safe to say, Adam, Kirby Sneed, Taylor Cicero of 2022 possibilities?
yeah, he's a midseason bullpen call up for sure. When our bullpen's a little bit exhausted or maybe we have an injury or two, he's probably one of the first guys to get the call. So
I mean, he pitched 70 innings between AA and AAA last year. He finished with a 1.57 ERA, and he was better in AAA than he was in AA. And just a killer slider, like just a wipeout slider. I mean, he calls it a slurf, but that thing has got some bite on it.
now
So
let's not kid ourselves. If he gets called up, we're going to take credit for that, right?
100%. Just another one in the walk-off.
The walk-off bump, we call it.
Yeah, that's right. So, very cool dude, also Texan kid, originally born in Massachusetts, well-spoken,
We had
really good stuff.
We had a listener comment asking for advice on where to get some good barbecue in Texas.
Yeah, it was.
And he went off. He like rolled up his sleeves. He's like, all right, well, if you're in Houston, it's this. And if you're in this area, like he really went off and dropped some good names. So
It
he's
was
a good
so
kid.
funny to me, too, because he was such a jovial, laughing dude, and we were having such a good time, and then he got asked the barbecue question, smile gone, and it was all business.
Let me pull
So
down
that should
the
be out
chart.
next. Yeah, that's right down the chart of barbecue places. Yeah, so that should be out. Kyle Johnston of the Buffalo Bison, that should be out next week. We did sit down and chat with Mark Zabchinski as well. He, of course, started his career with the Blue Jays back in 2009. A long career. He pitched for almost 10 years in the MLB.
Won
He
a World Series.
World Series with the St. Louis Cardinals.
He.
Wednesday. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say he was one of the quintessential victims of the 3-batter rule, because
Yes.
that basically ended his career as a
It did.
lefty
He was
specialist.
lefty specialist and a dominant lefty specialist. And he even talked about how he kind of got in his head. He knew he could get right-handers out. He had done it earlier in his career, but he kind of got pegged into this niche spot in the bullpen. And then when the 3-batter rule came in, he just too old to get out of it, I guess.
Well, like
But
he said,
very interesting combo.
like he said, you give up a hit to a righty, it really inflates those stats versus righties. And he's like, it might take me a month and a half before I face 5 more righties and get that number brought back down, right? So he's like, it just kind of built in his head is a lot of pressure on this one. Don't mess it up.
100%.
And of course, just like Mr. Baseball, if you're thinking don't hit, or what was it?
Yeah.
Don't miss. You're going to
Don't
miss.
miss.
You want to be thinking hit. So,
speaking of psychology, we actually had a chance to sit down with the head of the mental performance department for the Toronto Blue Jays, Robert DiBernardo, on Wednesday. And I wish I had a better vocabulary to describe how fascinating this man was and how much just psychology goes into that department, and just knowing the brain and the mental waves of these kids and how to get the most out of them and how to make sure that they've got the support they need. It was awesome. And anyways, that's another interview we just wanted to tease here and let you know that will be out next week. So, all right, let's get into it. You can follow us online, Twitter at Walk Off Podcast, the Walk Off Podcast on Instagram and on TikTok. Of course, you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you do listen to us audio-wise, please hit that subscribe button there. It does really help us. And then, of course, on YouTube, you can feel free to drop a comment. We do our mailbag every single Tuesday, and we'll answer your comments and questions. One last tease before we get into this. Long toss coming up on Sunday. I know it's Super Bowl Sunday, but we're going to stick with the format here. Feel free to join us live. We've got stand-up comedian, one of the best in Canada, joining us, Sean Lecomber. He's a diehard Jays fan.
Friend of the show.
Super funny. I'm actually really looking forward to him.
Yeah, no, Sean Lecomber's, he's a gem. He's just an absolute gem. And it's a shame that more people in Canada don't know names of great comedians, but he's certainly on the list of comedians way better than you or I. So it'll be a good chat on Sunday.
I was ball busting him when I invited him on, and he's like, I'm like, we need a hot take from you, as hot and spicy as your last one, which was trade Vladdy Guerrero while he still has value. He was just like, if you guys ambush me with that, that's the funniest thing you can do.
I love it.
We're going to be joined by Lewis Foster, big on Blue Jays Twitter. He has amassed thousands of followers, and he's actually very knowledgeable when it comes down to the stats and analytics side of things. He's one of those 16-year-old kids that's all about the analytics. He pitches himself, of course. He has helped us out on the walk-off, cutting some stuff up and doing some visual stuff earlier in our inception, if you will. And then, of course, we're joined by friend of the show, Hey Kami on TikTok, Joel LaFlamme. So that should be a good round table. Looking forward to that. That'll be 6 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday. Talking baseball.
Talking baseball on Super Bowl Sunday. Doesn't get any better.
Okay, well, we actually do have some news and some stuff to talk about on today's show. We're going to get into the fact that the MLB and Rob Manfred held a press conference yesterday announcing that there will be a universal DH in the 2022 season. Draft lottery is something that they're going to do, and they're eliminating the draft pick compensation. We'll get into the fact that Dante Bichette quit his role with the Blue Jays. Alec Manoah, the more we talk to some of these minor leaguers, we have found that this guy is just a beacon of hope and inspiration within the minor league system, and it's pretty cool. So we'll kind of delve into that. And then, of course, Lockout with your socks out. We will update you on what's going on there. There is going to be a new proposal from the MLB to the MLBPA tomorrow. So the hope is something gets going there. So let's get into it. Universal DH. It's happening.
It's unofficially official, right?
It's unofficially official. Now,
it's not official till it's agreed upon in a CBA, but this is something that the players want. And Manfred basically just announced yesterday that, yeah, we're good with that.
Yeah. I mean, 2020, the MLB came out with new rules for the shortened 60-game season, including the universal DH, and then staying consistent in the ongoing inconsistency of the MLB. They recanted that rule in 2021, going back to the system of pitchers hitting. in the National League. And, well, guess what? Manfred announced yesterday in a press conference it is going to be back. And personally, we'll get your opinion on this too, but thank goodness, man.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of National League fans, and I even understand where they're coming from, that are hating the words that are coming out of my mouth right now.
Purists,
if you will. And you know what? We talked about this before we even hit record, but there is a history and a romance to the two-league system within MLB currently and how they play baseball very differently. Of course, the strategy behind National League Baseball separates itself from American League Baseball because they do need to keep an eye on when the pitcher's coming up in the lineup and whether they're going to keep them in or pull them early or go to the bullpen. There is that aspect to it. But who wants to watch pitchers hit, man?
No, I agree. And you know what? Pitchers hitting is, and I know you're not the biggest football guy, Scott, but maybe some people who are listening will get the analogy. I feel like having pitchers hit is like having punters get points in fantasy football. Like, sure,
okay.
It adds a little bit of a wrinkle and some extra stuff to think about, but like, who wants to score punts, right? I guess it's basically what it comes down to. Like, it doesn't help the game other than that historical romance of the NL. Now, I'm also thrilled that this is out of the way. Like you said, they brought the universal DH in for the COVID season. Last year, they took it back out. The more I think about it, I feel like they took it out just so they had something else to bargain with.
More leverage, absolutely.
One more piece to trade. I don't think anybody who owns a baseball team is sad to see the universal DH be implemented. I mean, as far as...
Yeah, owners aren't in it for the integrity and the history of the game. That is for sure.
No, like, I mean, everyone in the AL, this is a win, right? Because it gives you a little bit more of a trade advantage, right? Like if you've got a Rowdy Tellez type who doesn't quite fit your team, your options are limited as to who you could trade him to in the NL, right? If there's no DH, but all of a sudden there's a DH and maybe there's 8 more teams that are now interested in a big hitting lefty bat, right? So more leverage that way is good. If you're an NL owner, you don't have to worry as much about your pitchers getting injured in non-pitching
And I think
activity.
that's one of the biggest reasons why this went through is pitchers are money. They're the most important part in baseball probably, you know, or at least the highest valued when it comes to building a team, and to risk injury over hitting. And you see it from a lot of pitchers. There were a lot of pitchers that came out yesterday on social media and were like, thank goodness. Like,
yeah, do you want to really see Jacob deGrom legging out a single and coming up lame on his way to first base? Like, every time Jacob deGrom takes the batter's box, if I was the owner of the Mets, I couldn't even watch.
And he's a good hitter. Like, this is the thing. I will trade the very cool moments, because there have been very cool pitchers hitting moments in baseball. I will trade the Jacob deGrom and the Clayton Kershaws getting a hit to avoid watching the 99% of pitchers that just strike out every single at bat.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And this is going to absolutely change the game. It is. But in my opinion, it's going to change it for the better. Listen, I dug up some stats here. This is NL pitchers as hitters in 2021. Okay? So NL pitchers had 4,157 at-bats last year.
Okay.
That's a major sample size. This is not a small sample size. In that 4,157 at-bats, they had a combined batting average of 108.
Wow.
They had a WRC plus, so weighted runs created, 100 being that average. An average hitter is 100. Minus 22 WRC. Like a 45% K rate. Half the time these guys are striking out.
Yeah.
Like, who wants to watch this? And also, while you go through those stats, no freaking wonder Shohei Ohtani won the MVP in the AL. despite Blue Jays
Yeah.
fans hating it, right?
Yeah.
He's a monster. That's just
Pretty
not something
incredible
that
what he
you.
did.
It's not something that happens. And listen, this is something I saw just on Twitter today. Let me dig it up here real quick. It was Anthony K came out,
Okay.
and his tweet was, most of us pitchers, he has in brackets, haven't hit since high school. We get batting practice like twice a year. I don't know why people want to watch us bat under 100.
Yeah. No, exactly.
And again, there is that romance to the two-league system and the history. But just because something was one way doesn't make it the best way for it to be. And I do think this is best for the game.
You know what?
Again, I know National League fans right now are hating everything we're saying.
If the National League wants to be so different, here's a rule change. Aluminum bats, NL only. But only for pitchers. All right.
And another thing, man, think about how many jobs this is going to create for guys that are aging who can't play the field anymore but still swing a mean bat.
Yeah, I mean, 15 new jobs instantly.
Instantly. And when Nelson Cruz got this news, he popped a boner. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there are some interesting little things that are going to happen now. Look at Buster Posey retiring. Frick.
Yeah.
I mean, he almost should come out of retirement. He had an OPS plus of 140 last year. Like, that would be a nice little DH bat off the bench, right?
Yeah, actually, he's a great candidate because he could be a DH off the bench, but also gives you a little bit extra flexibility at catcher. That's a really good one.
And think about the wisdom that this veteran catcher playing DH can impart to a young catching duo, right?
Yeah.
Even if he's not going to get behind the plate himself, like the knowledge. It's like having a bullpen or a catching coach right there on the bench with you.
Yeah.
Nelson Cruz, we brought him up. Obviously, I mean, 42 years old. He's got a job next year for sure now.
Yeah.
I think he would have anyways. I think someone would have taken a flyer on him, but it's a done deal now. Albert Pujols. Let's talk Albert Pujols for a second here, because he is very close to a major milestone.
Yes, sir. 679 home runs.
21 home runs away from 700.
There are only 3 baseball players in Major League history with 700 or more home runs. Of course, A-Rod fell 4 home runs short.
Yeah.
But, so it just goes to show how mega that 700 mark is. He was still... A-Rod got retired in the middle of the season, 4 home runs short of 700. That's how hard it is to get there.
Yeah. Listen, if you are a team like, let's use the Pittsburgh Pirates as an example.
That's a great example.
Because they're a god-awful team,
yes.
right? And they are not going to be anything but god-awful in 2022. And they are starting to dig themselves out of it. They've accumulated a bunch of really high-end prospects. They've got a bunch of picks. They're starting to see some development in these young kids that are making their MLB debuts. However, 2022 is not their year. The Pirates are probably 2024 or 2025 before they even start to compete in that division again, is my guess.
Yeah.
So if you are the Pittsburgh Pirates, why wouldn't you be all over Albert Pujols? Think about the wisdom that this guy can impart onto your hitters coming up, the youngsters in the clubhouse. This is, again, very much like with Nelson Cruz, right? You've got, or even Buster Posey, like we were just talking about, right? This is a guy who is going to be another coach. Why wouldn't you run Albert Pujols out there every day to try and get those 21 home runs? Because if you give him enough at bats, 21, I think Albert's got it in him to do that in 2022. And then you're the organization that has the 4th guy in Major League Baseball history to ever hit 700 home runs. You're going to sell tickets, and you're giving a guy who deserves a chance at 700 a chance.
Yeah, absolutely sell tickets. I'm sure jersey sales would be the highest they've been since Andrew McCutchen. Albert Pujols, what's let me. If you're Albert Pujols, how much money do you need for a 1-year deal?
I
Like
bet you he takes
honestly,
5 million. Like I bet you he takes less. I bet you if someone's going to give him a few $1,000,000 and give him a chance to play every day, he'll take it. What are your thoughts? I mean, he's made his money. Let's not kid ourselves. Albert Pujols is a very rich man.
I mean, his big mega deal just ended, but he earned 30 million last year and didn't do much to get that. Now, will he want to take an 85% pay cut? Right? These are guys with egos and they're fragile too, right? So it is. I mean, I want to say too, if I was Albert Pujols and I was that close to 700, I'd come back for the league minimum or like whatever, right? Like just give me a chance. But also,
And he might even, honestly, and this is my opinion anyways, I think that if a team is prepared to put in writing that they will put him out there as their everyday DH, he signs.
that's a good point. That might be because, yeah, you don't want to go to Pittsburgh, struggle through April and into May, and then get cut by the Pirates. That does
Exactly.
no good for your brand.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we did look at that with, I can't think now of the last off season. There was a shortstop, I believe, that we were looking at from Japan or from one of the Korea leagues.
Right.
Can't think of his name now. I think he ended up going to
The Padres.
the Padres.
Ho,
Thank you.
right? I think it is.
I'll look it up
wrong.
later while you're talking.
Yeah.
But anyways, he was in talks with coming to the Jays, and I believe that one of the stipulations of him coming over was that he wanted
He couldn't be sent down.
Yeah, it was not I need to play shortstop necessarily, but don't send me down to the minors. And obviously the Jays with Simeon and Bichette and quite the stacked infield did not want to make that commitment. So we lost out on him. So that might be an option for Pujols. That's a little tidbit. And yeah, I don't know. Pirates for sure should be interested in. Orioles maybe even perhaps. The Cleveland Guardians, after they trade Jose Ramirez to the Blue Jays, are going to need somebody. So, yeah,
I like
a lot
that.
of teams down there.
So all in all, the walk-off, we're behind a universal DH, correct?
Yes, sir.
And my apologies to all you National League purists. I love you still. Just
enjoy your DH.
Not going to agree with that one.
And enjoy your robo-umps.
Exactly.
Welcome to the future.
Draft pick compensation was also brought up. So as of 2022, there will be no draft pick compensation tied to free agents. You can no longer offer a qualifying offer and then get draft picks if you wind up losing them to free agency. I know my Twitter account, anyways, the walk-off Twitter account, was flooded with questions about this. I had about half a dozen people reach out being like, does this mean that the Jays don't get their picks for Simeon and Ray? Obviously, the Blue Jays extending qualifying offers to both Marcus Simeon and Robbie Ray, both of them taking monster deals in other organizations. And no, this is something that's going to be grandfathered in. Obviously, the Blue Jays still get their picks. Anyone in 2021 who had picks attached to them with their qualifying offer is still a go. But as of this moment forward, there will no longer be draft pick compensation tied to free agency, which is good news for free agents.
Is it? I just teach me here, Scott. What's the down? How does that affect the ability of players to get paid, whether or not there's a draft pick tied to them? Like if I'm Marcus Simeon and the Blue Jays give me a qualifying offer and it's like disrespectfully low, but sure, it's a formality. And then the Rangers offer me a big fistful of cash and I go there. How does that affect how much money I get? The fact that there's a pick going to the Blue Jays. Are the Rangers going to offer me less money? Are they going to be like, well, we would offer you $300 million, except there's a qualifying offer, so we can only offer you $275?
No, you know what it's going to do? It's going to eliminate organizations from getting involved, and that's the downfall to the pick. So take a look at Robbie
Fewer
Ray, right?
bidders.
Look at how the Blue Jays went after Kevin Gausman, who had no picks attached to him. Right? Even
Right.
though very, very comparable, and Robbie Ray had already proved himself within the Blue Jays organization, and just looking at things from a peripheral standpoint, from an outsider looking in, you would think that Robbie Ray would be the guy that they would have went all in on. However, they didn't do that because of the draft pick compensation. And looking at the two guys side by side with that many comparable values.
Right. I see where you're going with this. You're saying that it's fewer bidders and a bidding war leads to more money, right? Mm-hmm. Again, I just have a hard time following the logic of that because I do feel like baseball and the money that's being spent is a zero-sum game. So if it's fewer bidders for Robbie Ray, it's more bidders for Gausman. So if Ray makes 20 million less than he should have, and Gausman has 7 more teams interested in him because of, I don't know, it just feels like it's an arbitrary distinction that like, no, we want more money for Robbie Ray and less money for Kevin Gausman, because Gausman would have gotten less money if there was more people interested in Ray, correct? Like, it just feels like it washes itself out. I don't think the players as a union are going to have less money spent on them across the board.
I don't think it was a major issue. I don't think that this was something that was affecting every single free agent with a qualifying offer, but I do think that there were players that affected. There were organizations, especially medium and smaller market organizations, who, when you're stockpiling draft picks, you don't want to lose one to pick up a guy with a qualifying offer attached to them, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Especially some of these guys who, you get that $18 million qualifying offer and then they wind up signing a 3-year deal somewhere, right? So it affects pitchers. But is it going to make a massive difference? No, it probably isn't going to change the game all that much. It just means that when you lose your high-end free agents, you don't get a draft pick out of it.
Honestly, like, I'm clearly not an expert, so I don't really have a leverage to even express this point of view. But I do feel like across the board, the players are like arguing for stuff that like doesn't really make a difference. Like they want like the minimum salary up to 700,000 or more, right? It's not going to mean more money in the players' hands. It's just going to mean more money in the new players' hands, right? Like, but
yeah,
no, like it's going to mean
that's a big deal, though.
No, I agree, and that's good in general. But like, how much the Yankees spend is going to be dictated by the salary cap, not by
the salary floor,
not by anything else, right? So if they have to spend $7 million on 10 league minimum guys, that's just $2 million less that they have to give Garrett Cole.
Well, this is what's so frustrating with the owners, man, is that they are prepared to spend $350 million on one guy, but to raise the floor $100,000 for their newest members is a sticking point. But
I just want to clarify before we move on. I am in favor of the new guys and the young guys getting paid more and less for the ultra millionaires like Trevor Bauer and Garrett Cole. It just feels like a weird point for the union to be arguing, but I guess it's, I don't know. I wish it was just tied to revenue and we could get into a whole thing. Maybe we'll just save it for Sunday and I have more time to rant. I'm sorry. Let's move on.
Nope. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Let's get into Dante Bichette here.
Yes, that's a good one.
As of right now, Dante Bichette has quit his position with the Toronto Blue Jays as a special assistant to the hitting coach.
I read way more into this headline when I first read it. And after you explained it.
We all did.
Yeah, we were like,
we all did. Yeah. But currently the rules is that if you are employed under the MLB banner, and that includes anybody hired by an organization that is within the Major League Baseball ranks. So if you are a Major League coach, if you are the manager, if you are a
Pete
trainer
Walker.
or
Yeah.
a dietitian, whatever it may be, you are not allowed in any way to have conversations or meet with players.
On the 40 man.
Now, on the 40 man. Now, Dante Bichette obviously has been a mentor to a lot of these kids within the Blue Jays organization for years. And his kid is the cornerstone of the infield for this organization. And I think he just decided, you know what, I'm going to quit to help these players while no one else can. And I think the Blue Jays are just going to hire him right back.
Of course.
As soon as this CBA is put into place. So it was kind of a way to circumvent the rules and still follow the rules, but also be able to help all these kids that he has been helping for years.
Yeah, I mean, it sure would have been weird come Father's Day if the lockout was still going and like everyone's giving Dante a hug except for Bo, and he's just like, "Hey, bro, tell Dad I love him."
Yeah,
Right.
so weird. I
That's
just
weird.
like some of these rules, and we'll get into this. Obviously, we are going to end on kind of where we're at on the lockout, but my goodness, like spring training could be going on in a week.
Yeah.
Like that's the truth. Pitchers and catchers are supposed to report, and
On
I mean
Monday.
there is a big they are forwarding a proposal on Saturday, tomorrow, and fingers crossed that it is supposed to be much more in the middle than anything that the MLB has proposed to the players. We'll see where it's at. But they could still negotiate through spring training. They could start the season and still be negotiating. The only reason that there is a work stoppage is the owners have put into this
Right.
lockout, right?
So that is what happened in 1994, correct? Was the CBA had ended, there was no agreement. Both sides just agreed to continue under the
Carry
old
on.
terms and say we will continue to negotiate while we play games. And then that's when the lockout ended mid-season, was they just got to a point where they're like, you know what? We are still miles apart. F
And the
this.
players, as the playoffs approached, used their last
Bit of leverage.
bit of leverage and went on strike.
Right.
So there's a huge difference between a lockout and a strike, a major, major difference. And I think that it really doesn't show very much good faith on the MLB's part to do what they have done. We'll see where it goes. And we are going to get into this a little bit more. But before we do that, I did wish to talk Alec Manoah. And wasn't it fun to talk to some of these minor league guys? Like Spencer Horwitz brought up Alec Manoah.
Yeah.
Kyle Johnston. And Horowitz is a first baseman.
Yeah.
Kyle Johnston brought up Alec Manoah. Like, he has become this beacon of hope in the minor league system. And so many of these kids are looking up to 23-year-old Alec Manoah and seeing him as a mentor and watching what he did last year and what cooler heads will prevail type of mentality on the kid, right? Like, he was never flustered. He was never a guy who flips out, throws his glove. Constant professional.
Yeah.
A sponge for knowledge. And I think all these other kids just watched this happen, watched him come in and dominate, watched him struggle at times, and instead of flip out, turn to the veterans and see what they could impart. And they've like lifted Manoah up as this like guy they want to be, right? And I think that's really cool to see an organization develop a player like Manoah, and it gives so much hope to everyone else within the organization.
No.
And when it's your peer, it means something more. This is one thing that Kyle Johnston even brought up when he watched Brian Baker get called up. Brian Baker's a guy who had been in the Blue Jays system for 4 or 5 years. He'd been grinding it out in the minor leagues, and he's gone now. I forget where Brian Baker got picked up, but somebody picked him up. He's in another organization now. But he was just saying that, like, that AAA team, when they watched him get called up, it was a celebration. And, I mean, we've heard the same thing about Taylor Sacedo. So watching your peer do something
Brian Baker is now a member of the Baltimore Orioles.
Right. Thank you. And he'll probably be in that bullpen all year long.
Or their starting pitcher, just
Or
their
yeah.
ace.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. Pretty darn cool to watch a kid within the organization have so much clout with his peers and the fellow players.
It's a hell of a culture that this Blue Jays team has developed. I mean, I know we've spoken more than once about it, but just the difference in organizational culture, like right from the ground, the grassroots up, compared even to that 2016 team that, again, we loved for different reasons. Very cool, though.
It is. And I honestly think that Alec Manoah, the sky is the limit in 2022. I think that this is going to be a kid who still takes another step forward. I think that he has zero pressure on him currently with Kevin Gausman and Jose Barrios and even Ryu ahead of him technically in the lineup. So there's no pressure on him, and he's just going to go out and pitch. The kid's a bulldog. He gets his innings in. I'm really excited to see what happens with this kid.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do also think, you know what? I don't know. I go back and forth on this. The success of Manoah, is that just in terms of pressure, okay? Let's talk pressure relative to Nate Pearson. Does that take pressure off of Nate Pearson, where he's now a little bit out of the spotlight and is able to just focus on his game, and all this hype can just be directed at Manoah, and Manoah can shoulder that pressure? Or is there now a comparison of, oh, look at what could have been, right? Like, how do those two factors balance out, I wonder?
I think it's going to be good for Nate Pearson personally. I think that it's going to completely take the spotlight off him and allow him to just pitch and get down to business.
How many?
I think this is the best thing that could happen to Nate Pearson.
How many ESPN features do we get on Alec Manoah touting him as a future Hall of Famer? Because I know we got at least one or two with Nate Pearson last year. So
oh my goodness.
Talk about pressure.
I mean, it was insane what the media put that kid through. Like, talk about the pressure put on Pearson, talking Hall of Fame with him before he's even pitched a major league game. Pretty wild.
Yeah.
Okay, let's end it on the lockout here. MLB's defensive lockout to inspire negotiations in a timely fashion has resulted, Adam, in one official offer to the players in 70 days. What a freaking joke.
Yeah, well, you got to proofread and check for typos, right? So they got to be thorough.
So Rob Manfred did hold a press conference yesterday afternoon between his crying for the owners about how little return on their investment they get and how they would make so much more in the stock market. It's like, well,
yeah,
they are also, like, it's not like these billionaires aren't also invested heavily in the stock market.
I'm sure they're familiar with it, yeah.
But they are going to finally offer a counter proposal to the MLBPA's offer. I mean, a week and a half ago, they said they were going to offer a counter proposal, and then they pulled that back, and they're like, we need a mediator. And then MLBPA was like, pound sand, right?
Yeah.
And here we are. They're going back. But, hey, they're going back to the negotiation table, and you know what? There was a little bit of hope, and I shouldn't get hopeful because it just hurts more when it winds up being exactly how we've talked about all along. But the fact that Manfred didn't come out and postpone spring training, I think does say a lot. I think that they're really hoping that they can make some progress over this weekend because, I mean, we'll see, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think it was a perfectly set up press conference for Manfred to be like, listen, we're going to move spring training. We still are going to try and start the season on time, blah, blah. But he didn't do that. I mean, that might be his press conference next Thursday. We'll see.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I love your optimism.
This is what came out of Manfred's mouth. I believe we will have an agreement in place in time to play our regular season schedule. I know it's all lip service and we can't trust Manfred, but
he also said something about like playing anything less than a full season would be disastrous.
Yes.
I don't know if I buy that that feels like that just feels like we have to say it.
Yeah.
Like he can't come out and be like, yeah, we're totally fine if we only play half a season. We did 60 games in 2020, worked out great. We all made a lot of money. So no rush.
Yeah.
He obviously can't say that. So the obvious answer is say the opposite of that. And that's, I guess, me as the pessimist, how it feels. If I'm reading it, because all we're doing right now is we're reading the tea leaves and trying to figure out what does it mean, right?
Exactly.
Here's
all
a tea,
speculation.
here's a tea leaf for you. Dante Bichette quit his job because he figured the season isn't going to start on time. I don't know. I mean, for whatever it is, I'm sure he was still collecting a paycheck in some form or another. Right? Like players get paid per game or per week or whatever, but all the other support staff, I'm sure it's a salary that's broken up into 52 payments or whatever, and he walked away from that. I don't know. It just feels like, hey, we're about to start spring training. I don't know.
I mean, you're right. Here's the thing. Manfred came out and said that he did see, he felt part of the reason there was an increase in injuries in 2020 was because they shortened spring training, and he would like a full 4 weeks of spring training. And if that is going to be the case, and they're going to actually start March 31st when they're supposed to start, and if you look at the schedule, the first spring training game is February 26th. Buddy, this needs to wrap up. Like they need to figure this shit out in 10 days.
Yeah. I think a good sign of progress will be when we start hearing leaks of potential free agent signings.
Yes.
Right? I do feel like, okay, we're getting close. So teams and agents are getting serious about Freddie Freeman, here's your final offer. We need to know, because if you don't take it, we're pulling it, because we got to find someone else, right?
Yes.
Because we're about to sign on the dotted line and we need to be ready to go. And I feel like people are going to be, insiders are going to be unofficially speculating a little bit more than they have been. So I think that'll be a good sign.
Yes.
But until then, I'm not going to hold my breath.
Agreed. And that's where we're at.
All right.
We'll end it there. Did you have anything to add, buddy?
No, I'm exhausted.
Okay.
We did 42 minutes in the middle of a lockout, so good for us. Right? And we didn't even do any speculation of who's going to sign with the Jays. Who should the Jays trade for? Look at us.
That's right. Okay. Honestly, everybody who is still tuning in, I know there's about 300 of you who watch on YouTube still, and a little over 100 on our audio. So the fact that we're almost pushing 500 listeners on our every episode is like, the hardcores are with us, and we thank you so much. And of course, we get feedback all the time that you're glad that somebody's making content. So there we go. Mailbag Tuesday. We're going to do Long Toss on Sunday. Long Toss, I know it's Super Bowl Sunday, but we are doing it live. Please join us. We had a really good time last week and an even better time. Looking forward here to the next one. So Twitter at Walk Off Podcast, Instagram the Walk Off Podcast, same for TikTok, and please hit subscribe if you haven't already. Appreciate all the views and the listenership. All the best, everybody. Cheers.